There's only so much you can say about the biggest American tech show of the year, and there's still plenty of mobile news to cover in the real world. Well, on today's episode of our mobile-only podcast, we're going to split the difference. On the first half of today's show, we've got a lot of rumor and speculation to cover, not to mention a huge Google acquisition and some not-too-encouraging developments in the legal world in terms of the internet. Afterward, we'll be joined by friend of the show, Hayato Huseman of Tech for Geeks, to tell us about his first-time experience attending CES. All that and your listener mail on episode 079 of the Pocketnow Weekly, the once-a-week audio podcast where we discuss mobile technology, smartphones, tablets, wearables, and most things in between. I'm your host, Michael Fisher, editorial director at Pocketnow, and joining me for this hopefully cough-free production are Chief News Editor Stephen Schenk. Hello to you, sir.
Saudate, Michael.
Ooh, and also Senior Editor and recently more healthy, I hope, Taylor Martin. Hey, man.
Vamp, 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 vamp.
Taylor's referring to the initial part of our rundown, which always says vamp to get past the ad block on the top.
Yeah. I read it for the first time ever.
I can't believe you read the rundown. We are already off to a great start.
Well, okay. By read, I mean I read the first 3 lines.
You read
4
vamp.
lines.
Listen, if you read vamp, then that's all I can ask of you.
If that's what the vamp is for, what is the gi ixiog jizog for?
That's a long string of text to remind me to fix the direct download link before I push it live.
Catch your eye, sure.
Yeah. So one of these days, listeners, we'll let you in on what a skeletal rundown post looks like. It's a very ugly thing, I assure you. We have so much to cover and so little time to do it before our feature starts, thanks in no small part to my horrible NyQuil addiction, which is not real, but sounds more horrible than it is. But it is horrible. We were supposed to start an hour ago. We didn't.
When did you wake up, Michael?
I don't want to talk about it. The world is spherical, Taylor, and it's always 7 a.m. somewhere. So I woke up at 7 a.m. today. But depending on where you are.
You're still on Vegas time, right?
That's exactly right. Thank you. See, Stephen understands.
I'm the king of rationalization.
I appreciate that. Gentlemen, we had a rundown that I built yesterday, and I was so proud of it. And I was like, okay, in the morning I'll wake up, I'll fix the rundown because it's so heavy with rumor and speculation, folks. There's so much being bandied about in the world of mobile this week. I guess everyone just didn't want to break after CES. It was just an explosion of rumor hit the feeds, and everyone, instead of looking at it and going, let's just let these pass, everyone was like, no, let's cover these aggressively. So now we have a rundown full of rumors, half of which are not true, right, Stephen?
Rife with speculation.
Yeah. I would love to kick things off with the big news of the week, but since we are not going to be able to cover those in depth because we don't quite have the time, let's just ease into this, gentlemen, shall we? Can we just kind of gradually dip our toe into the news feed with
test the waters, if it were?
If you will, yes. To stay true to our mobile-only roots. Let's not get into a big Google discussion right away. Let's talk about the Galaxy S5. Stephen, can you take us through what's real and what's not here?
Well, that's a good question. So we've been hearing so much about Galaxy S5 hardware, how the launch is going to happen. And this week we've been a little back and forth on the actual launch event. I mean, we had Samsung, an exec, confirm March or April. So generally the same sort of window we were looking at last year with the GS4. So people have been trying to nail down exactly when in March and April because we obsess about these things. We want the details. And
we need to know. We need to know where to camp out.
It matters, right?
Yeah, and
these plans.
Yeah. Michael can't wait to see Tap Dance and Tommy again, right?
That's exactly right. We have to see how Tommy's been doing in the intervening year.
I wonder if that kid's going to come back.
Unrelenting ridicule. I don't think he will come back. He did a great job.
His life is ruined.
Tommy
He's going to be like who's the Anakin Skywalker kid whose life got ruined after Phantom Menace? Yeah. It's going to be like that. But
I hope not. He did a good. It's not Tommy's fault that Samsung chose to use that approach. But
so there was talk about maybe an event in London instead of New York this year. But then right away fired back with, no, it's going to be March and in New York. So I don't know if it's going to be dual events or maybe just like a big one somewhere, a little one somewhere else. We really don't know at this point. But that March launch, possibly April retail availability is still seeming pretty on track.
Hit the wrong button. I was like, I came back in and was like, all right, and I hit the mute button right before I said it. Sorry. So that's good. I don't think I was ever treating as terribly authentic the notion that the Galaxy S5 would launch way earlier in the year.
Yeah, they've been mentioning February, which I don't think anyone is taking too seriously.
No. Yeah. I mean, because it was the Galaxy S4 was in May or April or last year, right?
Wasn't it March? And then it was supposed to be available retail in April, or am I getting that confused with the HTC One in my head?
I am looking at the review.
No, HTC One was February, wasn't it? And
so
then
our Galaxy S4 review went up on April 24th.
Right, so I think the event was in March.
God, was it really? Okay. Anyway, at any rate, that is the past.
Yeah, the HTC One was February, released in March.
Yeah. So we've heard like at least we haven't posted any serious rumors about any kind of date speculation on the new HTC product, right?
No one seems to have anything to say about that.
I did get a little bit of a gust, a scent of a rumor on the wind in Vegas. As Miriam might say, my little finger told me that there were units in Vegas. Of course there were, because HTC was probably shopping them to carriers. But I didn't get to see any, though. Frown on face. But anyway, what else is going on with the Galaxy S5 while we're talking about Samsung here? So those are the launch plan rumors. What about the specs on the device?
Yeah, we've been hearing a little bit about the battery in specific, talking about what size component we might get this time around. So far, every time, at least for the past couple of years, when Samsung comes out with a new Galaxy S model, it gives it a little bit bigger battery. 2100 for the GS3, 2600, we're talking milliamps for the GS4. And this new rumor claimed that the GS5 might see a 2900 milliamp battery. But apparently that might not be happening, you've heard, Michael?
That's correct. Our friend Stefan Constantinescu posted last night at, for his morning, whatever, he posted several hours ago, that he reached out to the people who were cited in this report, in this rumor, about the battery life being, and Samsung's Galaxy S5 said to have new 2900 milliamp hour battery that uses a startup's new technology. That startup is Amprius, Amprius, who've received a lot of funding, and there is a lot of meat to this rumor initially, but he just posted an update. I've just been given the following statement from Amprius, who denied that their high-energy silicon anode-based batteries will appear in the Samsung Galaxy S5.
Yeah. We should clarify, besides just the size of the battery, this rumor was specific that it would employ these silicon nanoparticles, not exactly the same as the silicon we heard about in use for the now shuttered Ubuntu Edge project, but still a new tech that would give the battery higher capacity for its size. Now, even if that's out of the running now, I still think this 2900 idea might be plausible.
I think you're absolutely right, yeah.
That doesn't seem too outlandish to me.
No.
But they did come out and specifically refute the Phone Arena story. So, and that's what we sourced for ours. So, that particular bit of it appears to be debunked at this point, but we'll have to see. But I can definitely believe a near 3,000 milliamp hour capacity. Sure.
And there could be some other advanced tech that gives this battery really good charge density that's not these silicon nanowire cathode. But it could be, there's plenty of other things that Samsung could try to use. So maybe it's just some other company it's shacked up with.
Absolutely.
They have to do something to offset the horde of new features that it's going to have. That are
if it gets that 2K display,
yeah.
Well, no, not even just that. The cross-eyed zooming and stuff like that.
Of course.
Somebody sent me a tweet the other day saying that it was a rumor of features that the Galaxy S5 will have, and some of them were like head gestures and stuff like that. So they said that I should try to get money for my ideas from Samsung. For my eyes,
for your handstand fueled screen rotation ideas.
It should detect when you're headbanging and then start playing appropriate metal music.
Yeah, no question. So that's about the size of the Galaxy S stuff we're looking at, right? Can we move on? I'm just looking at the front page right now, and it seems like that's about it, right? Am I missing anything?
I think there might have been more parroting of the specs we've already heard before. No one seems to know exactly. It's going to be really high-end hardware, metal, plastic, who knows.
And I really think that this is going to be the year where we're already so used to seeing, whatever, 3 gigs of RAM. It's going to have a Snap 800 and an Exynos Octa or whatever. I'm not expecting much in that arena to wow us, but we're almost certainly going to see new software. That's very exciting. Stephen, as you just said, we're almost certainly going to see new build materials. And I wonder if those two things combined will make Samsung, will sort of force Samsung's hand into positioning the device way differently than it's done the past few months. I wonder if it won't be a giant slew of new features, if it'll just be a couple finely tuned things where it's like, oh, hey, here, look. You can do this, this, and this with this device, and it actually does them really well. Instead
of 30
things.
This is Samsung we're talking about.
I know, but everybody has the capacity to change, especially when you've just received some financial numbers that aren't really that great, which we talked about a couple weeks ago. So
Samsung, your expectations for a company who typically plays darts by picking up the entire bucket of darts at Walmart and throwing them all at the wall at the same time and getting one bullseye and counting that as a win.
All I'm saying is, like,
they're very too high, way too high.
Look, but everyone can surprise us. You know what I mean? Look what happened with ZTE at CES. We didn't expect to see anything really good. We saw some good stuff. The world is a dynamic, changing place. But let's move on to another company anyway. Let's talk about Motorola, who has made one very predictable decision and one really weird one. the latest addition to the Motorola.
Wow.
The latest addition, sorry boys, to the Motorola, the Google family, the Google Play family, is the
brain is his brain is still ramping up from being asleep.
It is. It's
from
still spinning up
30
like
minutes
a
ago.
Torpedo gyroscope. The latest Google Play device is a Moto G.
Who'd have thunk?
Why?
Why is the question? Yes.
Why not? That's a better question.
So the answer to why not is it was already so close to being a Google Play device. Motorola's skin is already so completely transparent, almost, especially on the Moto G, which doesn't have the fancy features of the X, and it's already getting updated so quickly. Tell me why the resources needed to be spent to make the G a Google Play device, to make a special edition of the software for the Moto G. Can anybody justify it?
They're not making a special edition of the software, are they? Because they have to make the AOSP available to the Moto G before they start putting Motorola's customizations on it. So it's just like a step backwards and then publishing. Does that make sense? Like, they've already done that step and then they just decided to publish along the way.
I don't know.
Yes, we don't know how this is done internally at Motorola. I mean, it seems like it could be done relatively simply.
Yeah.
Now, I want to say that, like, we're not kind of asking this question because it's a bad development. It's great to have more devices in the Google Play Store. Maybe this is a part of a broader strategy.
That's what I'm wondering.
More devices in there, which I think is great. But it just seems like such an odd choice when you already have a device that's already very, very cheap, and it runs really well for that cheap price tag, and it runs a very close to stock build of Android. It just doesn't seem to be much of a difference. It's just another sales avenue, and maybe that's all we're looking at. So
I think we might want to withhold judgment until we actually see the next Android update come out. And, is this going to be a matter of days in the difference between availability of the software for the Google Play Edition and the regular Moto G? Is it going to be weeks? I mean,
that's a good point. Yeah,
we should see.
Because we shouldn't get spoiled, which I feel like I already am. Like, we saw the G get KitKat in almost record time after release, right?
Yes.
Second last week of December it got it.
Yeah, which is just crazy. So anyway, if you've been dying, if you were thinking of picking up a Moto G, but you were like, I'd really like a Google Play edition, then your day has come. What about on the higher end side of the spectrum with the Moto X?
Europeans.
Yeah, Taylor. Anybody?
Finally getting a shot of this guy.
Yeah, so all those people who have angrily tweeted at me for Motorola not selling this phone in Europe, you can now sleep easy and stop angrily tweeting me. Because I can't change that. Motorola can, I can't.
Yeah, but while they're getting it, though, they're going to have to pay for this puppy.
Yeah,
This guy's not coming cheap.
what's the cost?
Let's see, €429. It's mentioned for the French price, which I can't do conversions in my head.
Euro to dollar. Google.
But that's a lot of money.
Yeah, would you say €429?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is $583.57.
It's steeper than the Moto X Effect in the U.S.
Yeah.
I mean, we're used to higher European prices, but...
Yeah, that's higher than the original launch price.
I was just going to say, which was what?
$500, $550. No, it was $500.
And that's when the device was new. Like, it's just coming to European shores now in an official sense, and it's not a new device. I mean, this launched back in the summer. This should be getting the after the buzz treatment this week or next week rather. So,
Hint.
yeah, I know, but that's
and there's still no Moto maker.
What? They're just selling it in white and black over there?
I believe so, yes. Didn't I hear that the Moto maker, it might come later, but I don't think that was confirmed, was it?
Oh, boy. Yeah, well, and then that makes sense because, of course, that was a largely American push.
Well, yeah, and we saw there were some job postings in England for, it looked like they were setting up their own customization warehouse over there, but these postings were still open as of a couple weeks ago, so...
Boy. Wow. Well,
can't move that quickly.
Yeah, this just it flies in the face of what we want to see for the Moto X. I don't know if you gentlemen are on board with me on this. I think Taylor is, but I had the good fortune of or the opportunity to sit down with a bunch of Google employees the other day at lunch, and it wasn't a real, it wasn't an official thing or anything like that. I was just hanging out thanks to a friend of mine, and almost all of them carried either the Nexus 5 or the Moto X, as you might expect, and the love for the Moto X at the lunch table was palpable. I mean, everyone who carries this device really likes it. Granted, maybe this isn't the best example. These are all, company men, but it's what a excellent device this is the thought that runs through your mind after you use it for a week or so. And it would be great if more people outside of the press, outside of the American audience, more people in the world got to experience that. But it's never going to happen if the price just stays this astronomical.
Yeah, like here in the U.S., it's been, like you said, praised by pretty much anyone who's used it. But all those people who see it and then they see the price of it before the price drop, were just kind of like, there are better options for that price. But when they dropped it to $400, so $399, it turned into a totally different ballgame.
Yep.
A lot of people are very interested in this phone now, and if they did that overseas, it'd be really nice. Like, I don't understand why it would cost that much overseas. It just doesn't. Especially
considering Google has never seemed like it minds losing money on Motorola.
Right.
Obviously, no company exists just to throw money down the drain for no reason, but it seems like a very odd choice to position this so at odds with something like the Nexus 5. Which I don't know what the Nexus 5 price over there is. I know it's a little more expensive, but
it's funny you mentioned that throwing money away from no reason. It's not on the rundown, but there's a Windows Phone rumor from today that we might want to talk about when we get to that.
Absolutely. Let's bookmark that, and actually let's keep pushing forth because we have no more information to share on this. We can just talk about how we love the Moto X and wish everyone could have it. So let's move on from there. But Europeans who have been waiting for the Moto X and are willing to spend the money, congratulations, you'll be given the opportunity to do so. And finally,
I was just going to say there's some iOS news we could add in there as well.
Awesome.
Because we don't have any.
Really don't, yeah. But let's close out Motorola first. Motorola Assist. This is a great piece of news. So before, if you've read our reviews, listeners, or you've just kind of paid attention to the Moto X, you know that one of the highlight features of this mobile computing system on board the device is that it can tell when you're moving, and especially it can tell when you're driving. Now, this isn't a great thing when you're on a city bus and it thinks you're driving, because all of a sudden it'll just read all your texts out loud to everyone around you. But when you're driving in a car and all of a sudden your Moto X is like, new message from Lily. Want me to read it? And I'm like, yeah. And it's like, pick up some eggs because you need protein. And it's like, oh, sweet. Okay, thank you. But you couldn't respond before. Like, you could only say, tell Lily you're driving. Tell
Since when did
she sounds
Moto...
like that? She sounds exactly like that. Don't
frail old woman.
That's exactly what she sounds like. Don't even.
All I think of is Jimmy Fallon in one of his skits, and I can't think of which one it is. But it sounds like Jimmy Fallon.
But that's what she sounds like. But before, all you could do was like tell whoever texted you that you were driving, and be like, yeah, go ahead and tell them I'm driving, and then it's like, it sends a text, or it's like,
the away message, yeah.
Yeah, it's your away message, right? It's like, hey, I'm driving, but I'll get back to you later, sent from my Moto X. And I'm like, weak nonsense. But what you can do now, what I've always wanted the capability to dictate a text reply. And now you can do that, which is awesome.
It boggles my mind how it wasn't there originally. It seems like such a
no-brainer,
easy
right?
to implement feature. You assume these libraries for the voice recognition already exist. You just link up a few things, make it happen. But at least it's here now.
Absolutely, it's here now. It's great. It's packaged in with a couple other features that make it a little bit. I mean, they're not as major. Oh yeah, you can now select your default music player as well. Automatically launch your music app of choice when it detects that you're driving. Once again, not so great when you're on the bus or a passenger.
Or driving, when you're a passenger, or on a plane being taxied back to your gate.
Yeah.
The music's just, starts blaring out of nowhere, and people are like, what's going on?
Thankfully,
there's to work out.
Yeah, thankfully, there's always the toggle in the notification shade to say, like, I'm not driving. But at some point, it'll be able to get even smarter. Maybe the next iteration of the hardware will be able to tell if you're in the passenger seat or not. Let's move on from Motorola. That's great news to close out that category. Can we spend no more than 15 seconds on this, please?
There is an LG G2 in gold. It exists. If you want it, you can buy it in Taiwan.
God, I put it in here because it seems like, I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have even put it in here because why are we like rationalizing this? Why are we validating this by reporting on it? Can we stop with the gold phones, everybody?
I want to start calling them champagne just to shame them a little.
Ugh. I don't know.
It's just
maybe you like it.
It's ugly.
It's so ugly.
There's nothing to like.
The G2. It's just, every gold phone is ugly. I don't care.
Yes.
Ugh.
Yes.
Ugh. The Nexus 10 render is bogus, right?
Supposedly.
Everyone, we've been on the tips of our toes waiting for actual news about the Nexus 10 replacement, because the Nexus 10 is the great uncelebrated tablet of the Google Play Store, or the Nexus line, right?
Right. So yesterday, these renders, we just showed the one, but there were a couple more. There was one in white. There were some different angles, and it all showing off the supposed new Samsung Nexus 10. It was all just perfectly timed, because earlier in the day, we saw the 32 gigabyte Nexus 10, or was it the 16 gigabyte? The one that hadn't already sold out and was no longer available in the Play Store. So we were just perfectly primed to be looking for information about the new one. And all this arrived, and it's apparently bupkis.
Bupkis' dogs.
Bupkis.
So we are still waiting. The end of the story is that we're still waiting for any kind of official news on the next 7... How would you phrase this? Greater than 7-inch tablet out of the Nexus ecosystem. And we still have a long time to wait, I guess. Can we move on to the big news of the week?
Sure.
Is this the big? I was wondering what the big news was when you said.
Well, I guess so. The big news of the week that we can actually talk about briefly is that Google has purchased Nest for an absurd amount of money. Nest is the company that builds, if you are not aware, because there is some question about this. I was on Twitter talking with somebody from CNET. I think Roger from CNET, I just kind of responded to one of his tweets. I was like, are you sure that Nest is not really a recognized brand among consumers? And apparently that seems to be the consensus.
What?
Yeah, but it seems exactly right. I can totally believe that. It seems like exactly the kind of thing that we would all get up in arms about, because Nest is awesome. It's this cool thermometer that you control with your smartphone, or thermostat for your home, so you can control your home's temperature from your phone. And also it's very pretty, and we reported on it like crazy a year ago.
Nest is the only company I can think of that's really known for doing this home automation stuff. I mean, besides like X10 in 2001, but
or the AT&T automated home stuff.
Oh yeah.
But you're right, Stephen. But I think that like home automation is still such a tiny little. I don't think the mass market thinks about it really. I think this is one of those things that we have convinced ourselves, all of us in the tech media, have convinced ourselves that this is a huge thing. But I think in the real world, not a lot of people know about it yet. It's going to be a huge thing, but it's not yet.
Yeah, it's just like us expecting an average consumer to know what the Moto G is. We all love it and think it's a great, amazing thing, and it's been reported on 1 million times. And then you bring up the name to someone who's not in the industry, and they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Their eyes gloss over.
What's
and that's
a
the same
Moto?
exact thing with
Samsung make that?
Yeah. What is that? But I brought up Nest after this to a lot of people who aren't in this space, and they're like, I don't know what Nest is. So yeah, I totally agree with it. It's not.
The people who do know are freaking out about this news. There's all these paranoid. Google's going to take all the Nest data. It's going to know how your house is, and that's going to make it more evil and powerful.
They're going to control how hot your house is, and like
there were some award-winning tweets when this news.
Oh yeah,
like sorry, you need a Google Plus profile to change your thermostat temperature.
I think the best was we're going to turn the heat up until you join Google Plus.
Yeah, but it's important to note that Nest is no longer just a thermostat company. Like this is not 2020.
Right, they got the smoke detector, carbon monoxide,
that, and the home security stuff. I mean, I think that's the thing that sticks in people's craw. And I did have occasion to talk about this with the Google employees, and it's funny because internally, I think the fear on the Twitter sphere was not amusing, but was somewhat actually irritating to these guys who were just very dismissive of the notion that Google is going to be evil with this information, and of course, not consciously, right? But Google is a company. Sasha Segan was making this point at PC Mag. Google is a company that exists, that makes money based on knowing things about you, right? And now, not only have you invited them into your internet home, like your cyber home, but you've invited them now into your real home if you have a Nest product. You haven't really even invited them. Like, you invited their friend, and then they started dating your friend, and they just come with them everywhere, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Of all the data points Google could be gathering, I think these are probably the least objectionable.
Like, what is Google going to do with knowing how warm your apartment stays?
So it's not really the temperature thing. I think people are concerned that Google is now going to know, in addition to what you do on the internet, Google is going to know in the physical world when you are home. Like when you're at your house and when you're not.
What about those people who are on the Google Fiber already? I mean, it knows when they're home watching TV and all that. That's gathering a lot of data about their home living situation.
That's true. And then now picture combining that with knowing like exactly when their front and back doors open and close, when there's motion in their house, when there isn't.
Where they are by carrying their phones around with location services.
True. Yeah, so this is like filling one of those few remaining gaps of Google.
We just need like the Google Connect. That'll just really tie it all together.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm sure that'll be along.
Yeah. Okay, Google, now unlock my front door.
Right.
That's. And no, my phone.
And that's a good point because there's a lot of convenience to be had from this, right? There's actually a lot of good stuff that can come from this.
I've been thinking about how I could really use some sort of programmable thermostat because I've started to save heat. I'm turning down my temperature by 10, 15 degrees at night, and I would love it if I could like press a button on my phone 20 minutes before I wake up that would dial the heat up, so when I get out of bed, it's nice and toasty.
There you go.
Nest is just what I would need to do something like that.
Well,
yeah, when I said that my phone went berserk, the Moto X.
I think that I am very, very liberal when it comes to my thoughts about this kind of stuff. I'm usually not one to get freaked out. I'm usually not one to say, like, get out of my private life, you damn corporations, because, I'm a futurist. I really, really like how we're living in a future world, even though we are not dead and not in a science fiction novel. But I really prefer it, I'm starting to learn, and you guys tell me if you agree or disagree. I really prefer it when I can live in that future world surrounded by devices that are all made by different companies instead of all controlled by one central hub. Because I feel like I just like to spread my assets, everywhere.
That's
I'm with you.
I don't like. Shut up, Taylor. I don't like to put all my eggs in one basket, to use a cliche. I just really. It makes me uneasy. I wish that this acquisition had not taken place.
You want to diversify.
Exactly. You apparently feel the same way. Taylor, are you unconcerned about this or what?
I am not concerned whatsoever. I will probably invest in Nest. Now, the reason I didn't is because I'm not a permanent iOS user, and I'm not a permanent resident. I'm like a nomad, and I'm switching between apartments all the time. So having a smart thermostat is just something I haven't pulled the trigger on. Probably.
Are you living in your office at this point, Taylor?
No. Today is the first time I've actually been in my office since 5 days before going to CES.
That's awesome. Welcome back. Good to get that fine layer of dust off of everything. Well, and this segues into a question I have for the audience. Guys, we have a Nest here, thanks to Verizon Wireless, who sent us one literally months ago. We have not been able to figure out an angle on it because it's an old device. In the world of consumer electronics, it's like, this is over a year old. What do we do with it? We haven't been able to figure out an angle for this.
But why is Verizon Wireless selling the Nest?
They've been kind of broadening their retail store selection. I think they want to make their retail stores more of a destination so that
good for them.
Yeah, you have reason to go in there. Guys, what do you want to learn? What do you want to know about the Nest? I think that's my question to the audience. If you have questions, send us an email to podcast@pocketnow.com, and we'll try and figure out a way to cover this thing in some way that it hasn't been covered already, because it's back in the news. The Nest brand name is now more visible than ever before. It would be lovely to use this thing productively. By the way, I haven't installed it. I haven't just been living with a Nest for months and not reporting on it, because that's really lame. No, it's in the box. I'm waiting for some way to cover it. So if you have an idea, please send it our way. And guys, can we move to the biggest news of the week? I think the most depressing news of the week, if you read all the reports right. It's not in the rundown. But the net neutrality decision, were we reporting on that in any capacity?
Don't believe we have. Well, I was always under the impression that this had very little impact on smartphones, which might have been why I've been avoiding it. But apparently it has a small impact on wireless carriers, so it might be worth talking about.
Well, yeah. Well, ultimately, this is the problem with our bright line distinction and coverage that we use. And in many ways, it's very convenient for us, but in some ways it's not. We only cover mobile, right? But cellular networks, invariably rely on wireline networks. It's all one internet ultimately, right?
Yeah.
So this is going to affect everyone. From everything I've read, this is not an alarmist position to take. We don't have a lawyer on the team who's well versed, who's up to date. Anton of course has his law degree, but he's not using it. He's managing our site. So we don't have the kind of insight that we would like to have on this, but it doesn't seem like great news. I think
not for us, but
no. I mean, it doesn't seem like great news for anybody but the damn corporations.
Yeah, that's my point.
Yeah. So my favorite headline on this came from Medium, from Platypus Journal. Net neutrality is dead. The FCC won't save it. It's time to start building. And that building references to municipal internet networks. But I mean, what do you guys think on this? Stephen, how worried are you about the future of the internet?
I don't know. I think net neutrality is hugely important, but I'm also incredibly pessimistic about the ability for the FCC to do anything about it. I mean, there was some report how many of these FCC commissioners end up as lobbyists for the cable industry after they retire from there.
Yeah, I'm sorry. If you haven't been following this, what happened is the D.C. Appeals Court declared that the FCC lacked the authority to enforce the compromise rules that it put on the telecoms back in 2-3 years ago, that provide your home and mobile phones with internet services.
But it seems I thought the idea was that it was a classification issue because the broadband's not considered common carrier status like like cable TV is, or the telephone company, that's common carrier.
Right.
But if the FCC reclassified broadband as a common carrier, then it could regulate it with its net neutrality rules. I don't know why that they're unable to reclassify it or what.
Well, apparently, and we can drop the link that I'm mainly sourcing from in the description here, but the Bush administration reclassified broadband, And that's when we had kind of this first wave of net neutrality discussion back, several years ago.
2009 or something.
Yeah, and the deal is that now, the takeaway that I get from it, and maybe we'll get some mail that says this is wrong, but the takeaway that I get is that your internet provider no longer needs to act like a utility. Like, companies can now charge whatever they want for whatever kind of traffic they want, or they will be able to, rather, once a lot of this takes effect. So, the worst case scenario, of course, is that it can slow down your YouTube videos, but give you really high-speed access to, like, say, if you use Comcast, their own preferred content partners. They can make that video really, really fast, really awesome, and they can clamp down on YouTube or whatever other video you want to watch. That's the kind of stuff. And it doesn't sound... I think the end result doesn't sound too onerous. Like, it's still like, oh... well, we're still talking about watching videos on the computer or, like, doing whatever, which sounds like this recreational thing that doesn't seem like it's worth getting all worked up about. But the future of literally everything that we do, with very few exceptions, is based on the internet. I mean, does anybody think that TV in its current form is going to survive much beyond the next
Arrow lawsuit does not turn out the way that the networks hope, I weep for the future of broadcast television.
Yeah. So, and of course, this has a huge effect on wireless as well. I mean, like I said before, it's all the same internet. So I don't know. It wasn't a piece of news that I really enjoyed seeing yesterday when I was trying to wind down my day, and I was like, oh, net neutrality is dead. Awesome. And
is that why you drank a whole bottle of NyQuil?
That's why I pounded a bottle of NyQuil burrowed under my covers. Yeah. Anyway, we'll cover this more in depth if we can, and I'm sure that there will be no shortage of observations from everyone else. But before we move on, Taylor, did you have anything on this, or can we move on to the other categories?
Not really. It's all been said, and it's not a great thing. It can be blown out of proportion, but it is a bad thing for consumers, yes.
It's enabled a lot of people, or like companies who have the capacity to be evil, whether or not they're going to actually be evil remains to be seen.
Yeah.
Solid point. Let's close out the pseudo-Android category. Let's bring it on back to, wow, I just got a duo of instant messages in my head that hurt my face. Ow. Wow, that was really loud. Sorry. Let's bring it on back to a narrow focus. Let's close out the Android category with this bizarro Nokia Normandy, which everyone seems hell-bent on reporting on. Stephen, is this concept hardware or what is this thing?
I have no idea what to say about this guy. It could be something that's very near the commercial stage now that Nokia may or may not push forward to release. It may have just been a very elaborate internal engineering experiment. Who knows? It's bizarre, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is bizarre. And what is it? Fundamentally, it is a Nokia phone running a very skinned version of Android. Is that correct?
Yes. At least from what we've seen, it appears that Nokia forked Android. We don't know what the base Android version is there, but they took it, they ran with it, they gave it their own look and feel. It's very different than what we're used to. And the phone itself sure seems to be an Asha device. That back button is straight up Asha. So there's this theory that Nokia may try pushing the Asha line to this something based on Android, but still looks very different and has a user experience to itself.
This is basically everyone's wet dream from like 6 months ago when Nokia's Nokia's handset division wasn't still absorbed by Microsoft, and every comment on every Nokia piece we ever wrote was, why don't they just make an Android phone?
I don't know that it is such a good thing, though. Because, I mean, if they were going to make, Android flagship models, then yes, that would be cool. But this seems like an alternative to Windows Phone is going to be the primary focus of Nokia. This seems like the second tier, and I'm worried that that's going to disappoint a lot of people who are expecting more from an Android Nokia.
Yeah, this is like a step down from the Moto G. If it's a forked build of Android for an Asha phone, then yes, it's a step down from the Moto G, I believe.
But I'm sorry, this is like a really, really tiny sliver of a news piece, and I wish there was more meat to it. And I wish we had Tony on the show so we could ask him. But, like, this is being produced by Nokia, but what division of Nokia? Is this
the device services or who?
Right. Because if this is being made by the part of the company that's not being snapped up by Microsoft, then this is really compelling. If this is being built by, what's soon to become Microsoft's Windows Phone hardware division, well, then it's going to die right away. But
will it though?
I think so. I mean, I don't see them making.
We all know Microsoft. If they're keeping the Asha line, they're going to rebrand it as Kin. And
yeah, this might arrive without Android name attached to it at all. Even if it comes through a lot like we're seeing here, it might not be promoted as an Android device. It's just whatever Nokia ends up calling it, Asha Point X.
Kind of like Microsoft's Kindle.
And what's crazy is that these are press renders, guys. These are not like internal. We're not just stuck to Mr. Blurrycam here. Like, these are actual press renders. This looks like a product that really will come to market, and that Android skin looks a lot like Windows Phone, which is so funny to me. Like, that they're gonna. It makes a lot of sense that they would want to retain the visual aesthetic while changing the underpinnings. But this is just the most bizarre thing ever. And the biggest
bizarre,
is Tony says there aren't many details except that it should be landing this year. Our bet is MVC. If this thing lands on MWC, that's going to be a huge story, and I can't wait to hear about it. Because I am so confused by this.
Yes.
All right. Let's move on to another category before we have to move on to the feature segment of our show. We have some Windows Phone news that didn't make it into the rundown because it arrived so late. Stephen, why don't we actually jump in with the piece you were suggesting?
About throwing money away?
Yeah, please, because I don't know what you're saying there. Give us the picture,
right,
please.
So going back for a couple months now, there's been all this talk about how Microsoft might be interested in encouraging other manufacturers besides Nokia to produce Windows Phone devices. We heard about dual boot with Android. HTC was mentioned early on in those. We've heard about Microsoft possibly making Windows Phone available without any sort of licensing fee, or even paying companies to get them to produce these devices and flesh out the Windows Phone landscape a while. And a new rumor coming out overnight attempts to name just what sort of figures that Microsoft could be paying these companies. And they are big numbers. We are looking at $1.2 billion possibly going to Samsung just to release a single Windows Phone device. That sounds cuckoo bananas to me. Would you pay them $1 billion to make another ATIV?
Now, is this? I'm sorry. Is this fee like counting device costs? Like, is this factoring in a mass purchase of devices?
No mention of that. I don't know if this is that they're purchasing that many. If there's cash, if they're giving them something else that's worth an equivalent of this, we don't know. But
wow,
those are big numbers.
Wow.
And also Sony getting, I don't know, pulled up here, I think it was 400 or 500 mil. Huawei was 600. Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's amazing. Like, do you guys
doesn't make sense, but at the same time, hasn't Microsoft's strategy with Windows Phone thus far been throw money at it?
Absolutely. I mean, this is exactly in line with what they've been doing so far. Like, problem with Windows Phone? Toss some cash at it. And that's gotten them to a point where they're actually seeing some level of success in certain markets, especially on the entry-level side.
But they've been seeing that success with these Nokia devices. My question is if they even need new competition.
So that's a good question. And I guess the answer lies in examining what Microsoft ultimately wants to do. Do they want to be a company that just makes their own hardware, as they will be doing shortly? And, do they want to be Apple-like in that regard? Or do they want to continue straddling the line between iOS and Android in those two business models? And I think the latter is what they want to do, because it's so attractive to have a healthy ecosystem of third-party manufacturers. Taylor, what would you think about a Sony-made Windows Phone? To me, it sounds like a sexy idea.
I just fell asleep.
Yeah, I know. I picked the wrong time to try and bring you in on the conversation. I thought you would really not like that. I mean, but I like it, though. I think, can you imagine picture a Xperia tablet. No, what is that thing called? Xperia Z Ultra.
Z1, Z Ultra, which the phablet.
Yeah, but shrink down the Z Ultra to manageable proportions, but keep it that thin, and then put Windows Phone on it. I mean, I'd carry
now that would be interesting.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'd carry it for a little while, but I'd probably get bored.
I just think Sony makes really sexy hardware.
Yeah, it's pretty looking.
Yeah, and Windows Phone would fit very nicely on it. In contrast to something like Samsung, with you picture a Samsung Windows Phone, you think a TVS Neo, you think
Those
a
are
TiVo
so ugly.
Odyssey, which are just they're like, oh wow, more fake metal on a Galaxy S3.
I want to see another LG Jill Salinger phone. That was pretty.
Ooh.
You remember that?
I don't know who you were talking about.
It was a boutique phone made by LG for some European fashion line.
Wow, I don't know.
It was a nice phone.
I want to see another LG Quantum myself. I still love their keyboard on their own Windows Phone.
Yeah, it's a
What about
non-starter.
that G Flex in Windows Phone form, Michael?
No.
Oh.
Yeah, I wouldn't want that. I love the G Flex, but I wouldn't want to mix my loves in that way. I want to carry the G Flex alongside a real Windows Phone.
We would need to bend all the live tiles slightly so it would match.
Exactly. Actually, I think that would look pretty good. But let's not get off Samsung, because Samsung is the only concrete rumor we have, right? The Sony thing is kind of ephemeral. We don't know what's going on with that, except that they're interested in making Windows.
Yeah, Sony, well, they said they're talking, so that's something.
So we'll see. I mean, we don't have any hardware rumors, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, we do have a Samsung hardware rumor, and what is it? It's this W... It's at the codename phase.
And for some reason, it's back in the news again today. I can't figure out why, because there's no new info. That user agent profile we had revealing as a 1080p device was around back in December. So it is a very high-end looking Samsung Windows Phone model. So far, we have nothing but that model number and a few sparse specs from.
All right, so we have so that $1 billion+ is, if true, is hard at work making a new Samsung Windows.
Well spent, Microsoft.
Absolutely. And finally, in Windows Phone, we see the Lumia Black update starting to roll out. This was a couple days ago, actually, that started landing on unlocked Lumia 920s.
I think it's also hitting the 820s I saw somewhere.
Yeah, I think you're right. And this is a big deal because of the various features in Lumia Black, which we talked about months ago, actually. But the big headline grabber for a second there was that you can now have folders on your Nokia device. It sounds like something that you would make fun of the platform for. It's like, oh, they're just celebrating about folders. Look how far behind they are. But no, Windows Phone's aesthetic is very specific. It has never included folders before, except for Samsung's custom little job. And
It's never included it, except when it has.
Yes, well, but you know what I mean. Like from that very specific OEM that no one had bought devices from. And now it is on the most popular line of Windows Phones. So update to Lumia Black if you can, if you have a Nokia Windows Phone, and you will have the ability to incorporate folders.
And Nokia has a fantastic list online by phone, carrier, region of the world showing when your software should be coming, where it is in the update phase. So check that out if you're curious why you haven't gotten anything yet.
This is outstanding. Taylor, why don't you finish our news category, please, with the iOS bit of news we were talking about before.
Oh, I thought you were joking, and I closed out of that window.
I was not joking. I was fully serious.
It had to do with Apple. Let me try to find it, but it had to do with Apple paying people back for their kids buying in-app purchases.
Yeah, it's still right on the front page, right? Apple returning $32.5 million to parents as part of FTC in-app purchase settlement. What is the story here? I don't know anything about this.
I don't either, but Steven seemed to have written this one. So
this is an old one from the long ago. Back about 3 years ago, Apple released an iOS update to undo this quote-unquote feature where when you were authorizing a purchase in the App Store or anywhere, you'd enter in your password to confirm what you were buying. And then, assuming you were on a buying spree, iOS used to give you a 15-minute window where you could keep on buying more stuff without having to re-enter the password. On face value, it makes a lot of sense, assuming, of course, that you have exclusive control over your device. What actually happened is, parents would buy some app for their kid to get them, Smurf, Super Fun, Happy Village, give the iPad, and little Tyke would start playing around and buy some
Is that a real app?
Smurf berries.
I
don't know if that's a name. It's a Smurf app. You could buy like $100 worth of Smurf berries to make Smurfs things happen faster. How in-app purchases always work.
Of course.
And then, but this update 3 years ago finally stopped this after the FTC had gotten involved, thanks to parents complaining. And now, 3 years later, they're finally settling things that Apple is going to be giving back. It says full refunds to all those parents who did this. I haven't seen any information on how to register to get some of that money, if this might have affected you, but hopefully we'll be hearing more about that. And Apple definitely seems to have learned its lesson, which it had 3 years ago, but at least it's making things right.
Oh, settlements. This is a good example of litigation actually serving some good, because I think some of these people actually did deserve them dollars. Gentlemen, that's going to close us out for news. Thank you for the efficient and hastily rescheduled rundown. And now it's time that we jump into our feature. So, you may have thought that we were done with CES coverage, and after this, we will be. Except I think there's one other thing in the buffer that we're still talking about CES. And the reason is not just to, as Tony would put it, continue trying to squeeze more milk out of the CES cow. But it's because actually there's a lot to talk about. And rather than bring someone on, we had some guests lined up, some tentative arrangements to have some other guests on who've done CES a million times before. We wanted to talk about some of the devices we didn't get to cover, blah, 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 predictable stuff like that. But none of that seemed as compelling to me, and I think to my co-hosts, as bringing someone on who has never seen CES before, never been to a consumer electronics trade show at all before, and so that's what we decided to do. I'd like to take the opportunity for our feature segment here to welcome friend of the show, Hayato Huseman of techforgeeks.com. Hayato, welcome to the show.
It's good to be on here.
It is good to have you, man. I think you mentioned in the pre-broadcast that you listen to the show every week, so it's weird because we have you on the Pocketnow Live quite often. We see your face all the time, and now we're on the Weekly where no one's faces are visible ever. So it's just cool to have you on this other medium. Thanks for carving out some time for us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, and I hate we missed you by just hours in Las Vegas.
Yeah, that's an important point to make. So I was delayed getting to CES, but I was nowhere near as delayed as poor Hayato was, who got there, I think, it was just hours, right? You got there, what was it, Wednesday night, is that right?
Wednesday afternoon around 3 o'clock, yeah.
Wow, our planes literally crossed each other in the air over McCarran International Airport.
Well, on the plus side, that avoided Hayato getting infected by all of our Pocketnow CES diseases.
That is true.
Did it, Hayato? Are you in fact healthy?
Yeah, it looks like I'm one of the few people to escape CES without any kind of plague.
Which is ridiculous because you walked around shaking hands with pretty much everyone in the industry, if your Instagram feed is to be believed.
I carried a lot of hand sanitizer with me, so that definitely helped.
That's important. Just
I wore
build up
gloves.
an immunity to it. Yeah.
Michael just went around. Michael was open mouth kissing everyone. So
that's exactly right. I was open mouth kissing everyone I saw.
Hi, my name is Michael. Will you kiss me?
No. That's how I kiss. Hayato, was that the high point of the show for you? Was it meeting personalities that you've been following for a long time in the tech press? I mean, what was that? That must have been really cool. Was that your first time doing so?
Yeah, it was. That was my first time meeting all these people, and it was definitely my favorite part. I met Phil Nickinson from Android Central, and I got to meet about half of the Techno Buffalo. Well, 3 of the Techno Buffalo members. The rest of them had just left to go home the morning that the morning of that day.
Wait. Oh, no kidding. So they left the same day. Here we were thinking we were the only schmucks to leave like a day after the show started, but okay. Good.
Yeah, they left on actually the morning of the last day.
Roger.
But Ashley and John Q and Sean were still there, so I got to meet them. And actually, as soon as I ran into them, I went into their little Techno Buffalo room that they had, and the first thing that Ashley said to me was, "Are you sick?" And
very sensible question. Before you come into our quarantine hut, are you sick at all, you plague-ridden bastards out there? So we saw Instagram pictures of you with, I think you met Austin, is that correct? Austin Evans and MKBHD?
Yep.
Awesome. So we're sorry that we could not join the ranks of those to actually meet you in the real world, but what was the first thing that you did upon landing? Like, I mean, did you go to the trade show floor right away? Did you just strike out to see what you could see? I want to know what the first device was that you laid hands on and wanted to see.
Well, as soon as I landed, I actually met up with my grandpa. He drove from he lives in California. He drove over to see me, and we stopped by the hotel, got checked in there, and then we tried to go and pick up my pass at the convention center, but there were some issues getting my press pass, so I had to do that the next morning.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
So your first few hours in Vegas were spent not being able to attend the show because of badge issues?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Well, welcome to the club. We've all been there once or twice. Once you finally got on the show floor, I mean, do you remember what your first... I don't remember the moment... IFA was the first show I covered, so I'm not sure I can recall the exact moment where I was like, holy crap, I'm at one of these trade shows. This is awesome.
Yeah, Michael doesn't know what he's doing. Let's just ship him abroad and dump him in a country where they don't speak English and see what happens.
Exactly right. He has 8th grade German. It'll work out fine. But
Ich habe keine Hosen.
Hello, hast du einen Taschenrechner? But I just like I had that moment at PAX when I wasn't even covering it. I was a guest. I was at PAX East, and I was kind of walking the show floor, being like, "Wow, this must be what CES is like, except it's all filled with stuff I care about instead of like gaming stuff I know nothing about." But Hayata, do you remember the moment that you were like, "Wow, I'm at CES. This is profoundly cool"?
Yeah, I mean, my first morning, right after I got my press pass, I was waiting in line to get into Central Hall, and I just remember the first, as soon as it hit 9 o'clock, they let us all in, and the very first thing I saw was about 180 4K LG TVs just all lined up in this giant thing.
Yeah. How many trillion pixels do you think you saw at one time?
It was ridiculous. It was all 4K, probably like 50-inch TVs, and they were all 3D. They were handing out 3D glasses so you could watch this gigantic house of a TV.
Yeah. Yeah, that was ridiculous because you kind of had to walk through the LG booth to get anywhere in Central Hall there or whatever. And it was like, oh, wow, it's the giant 3D wall. But you guys at Tech for Geeks, your coverage is, I mean, it's slightly broader than ours, but you mainly focus on mobile, isn't that right?
Yeah, for the most part.
So you struck out, and you probably went directly to, if you were near LG, I imagine you either stopped by there to see their Life Band, or maybe you went over to Samsung, which was right next door.
I didn't check out any of the Life Band or anything related to that. I did look at the WebOS TVs.
So you did? Oh, okay. We didn't talk about this. Taylor and Tony went over to check out the WebOS TV. They did not film it because we don't cover TVs. Tell me, could you guys just tell me what it was like? Because I didn't get to. I was sick in the press room, hating life. What was it like to see WebOS on a TV?
It's pretty cool. I mean, the main home interface doesn't really look like WebOS until you get into like the web browser, and then at the top it's got all the the rounded corners and tabs and all that.
Yeah, the old
Does it
stuff.
use cards at all?
Yeah, you use cards to kind of switch between all the different apps like Netflix or whatever you want to do with the TV.
Mm-hmm.
How weird was it? Like, were the booth attendees kind of like trying to tell you about WebOS, and were you kind of like, yeah, I know about cards? Like, can I
back in the
these?
long ago?
It just seems to me like that would be the most profoundly weird thing to experience. Would you buy one? Go ahead, Taylor.
I didn't even stop to look at it, to be honest.
Really?
I was in such a hurry. I was just kind of like, get out of here, because the LG booth on Monday was absolute insanity. Because we were we went to the Life Band's like little section, and I would imagine, if I were to estimate how many people were just around that little internal booth within the booth, probably 400 people.
Wow.
Crammed like sardines, and I was just like, I have to get out of here. Like, this is insane.
Was it worse than the Samsung booth?
Oh, yeah. On Monday, and then I think earlier that day I was in Samsung. So, I mean, it's just... Everywhere you go in those giant booths like that, you would imagine, since they have such large booths, that it would be roomy and spacious and people could kind of breathe. No, everybody packs in really tight, really, really tight.
Sardines in a can.
Yeah. Because they use the floor space, like 60% of the floor space is dedicated to products that regular consumers will want to see, like the attendees of the show who do not follow the industry as closely as some of the press does. And so all of a sudden you're devoting more than half your floor space to like, hey, it's the Galaxy S4, check it out. It's like, no.
Hey, we're Samsung, and here's this random car that does not belong to us and has nothing to do with any of our products. But here, it's right in the middle of the floor.
Hey, why are you complaining about a car, Taylor?
Yeah, exactly. Taylor, I think that was not your worst moment of the show.
No, the cars at CES are always amazing.
So, Hato, what was your experience like trying to film stuff in this environment, in this extremely challenging environment? Were you thrown for a loop at all, or what was it like?
I mean, I hear everybody complain about how terrible it is to go to something like CES as by yourself with one person. I really didn't have too much trouble. It was just I couldn't really show up in any of the videos for the most part, so I just kind of set up the tripod to have the device in the shot, and that was about it. I would just, talk over that, but it wasn't too bad.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Well, you a baller, No, I don't know. Taylor, you covered it solo. You had a horrible time doing it. I would have a horrible time doing it. I need backup. Mainly, I think I need people to complain to. I think is what
the biggest thing for me, like covering a show like CES alone, is not the individual videos that you have to shoot. It's being everywhere at once.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's especially worse at something like CES because it's so massive and it's not centralized in one building. It's spread out across the whole entire strip. So when it comes to something like that, it's very difficult. If you're at something like Mobile World Congress or a one-off press event, covering it by yourself is a breeze. You just can't appear in front of the camera unless you have a tripod, which I usually carry with me anyway. But
I've been meaning to mention this for the entire show, and I guess I'll say it now. Taylor's using new EQ settings, by the way,
and I'm echoing like crazy.
Reverb, yeah.
And like, not only are you echoing like crazy now in our ears, but once the podcast filter goes on in our post-production process, you're going to sound like you're podcasting from the bottom of a canyon. So for everyone who's been putting up with this for the past 80 minutes or whatever that the show has been going on, we're sorry. I should have said it earlier, but Taylor, maybe fix that before next week.
How about that? Is this better?
No, nothing's better.
Let's do the helium voice. That's going to be the winner.
I can do that right away.
Oh my God! Hayato, welcome to the horrible comedy hour of the Pocketnow Weekly. So, Hayato, correct me if I'm wrong. You seem to be like a pretty easygoing guy. You seem kind of unflappable. Am I right?
Sure.
Okay.
No, I'm a jerk.
I'm a total blowhard who's very high strung and an ass. But no, you seem like the kind of guy who's perfect for a trade show like this, where there's a lot of stress, but I think it kind of like rolls off you. But that being said, tell me your least favorite part of being there.
My least favorite part was probably the complete malnutrition I had while I was there. I just had no time to eat before or after the show.
Man, come on! All the lukewarm shrimp you can eat.
Right?
Yeah. So we went to a buffet every single morning, and
Nice.
Michael was really only there for 2 mornings.
Bacon.
Well, okay. So we didn't go the last day. We didn't go to breakfast the last day, but Michael said he's not much of a breakfast guy, and I said, if you do anything, please eat breakfast. Like, I'm begging you, because if you don't eat breakfast, you're not going to eat until 3 or 4 in the afternoon at the very most, and it's something like this. It's like a piece of bread, and
I had no appetite. When Jaime and Brandon and I went, we ended up eating like $40 frozen pizza at the cafeteria, which you don't want to do. So I totally get that.
Yeah, but like for lunch, if you're press, they provide you in the press room with lunch. And the one day that I was in the press room,
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. If you take your badge, they scan it, and they give you a box of lunch.
Nice.
And the lunch I got was a Caesar salad. So I thought, maybe this is a normal Caesar salad, but I got it, and there was a wrap in the middle that had lettuce in it. And then
What?
Yeah. There was a wrap with lettuce in it, and then there was lettuce inside this box with chicken. Like, and then the wrap was laid on top of the rest of the stuff. It was like the most really weird thrown together thing ever. But the lunch they give you is not going to fill you up. It's not going to. It's going to sustain your
I disagree
minimum levels.
My turkey on croissant was outstanding. But
the one that Tony tried to throw away?
That's the one. Hayato, you did not get the press room lunch, but you did end up in the press room a bit, right?
Only to pick up my badge. That was about it.
Oh, really? You didn't use the press room for uploading or anything like that?
No, anytime I wanted to upload my videos, I would just go back to my hotel, actually. Just take the tram back to the hotel and then set it all to upload to Google Drive, where Jen, the other guy from our site, would edit those when they got to them.
Oh, all right. So you were just uploading in the raw and the back end stuff. So you were accompanied. You were just virtually accompanied.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you pick up your paper thin CES bag?
No, I tried to find one. Were they at the press room?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Are these like those giant things that you see Comic-Con people walking around with?
No, they're actual backpacks, but they're made of pretty thin fabric. I think they're nice. I didn't get one this year.
I'm carrying it right now as my personal bag, so
it's your daily driver for your backpack.
Yeah,
that's your
and I'm a bag guy. I'm a bag guy.
Oh, that's a very good question, Hayato. As a first-time attendee to CES, what device did you carry predominantly on the show floor to see you through?
So I actually had 4 phones with me at that time.
That's the spirit.
Nice, well done. Which ones?
Yeah, I had my Moto X, a Galaxy Note 3, an iPhone 5, and an HTC One Max.
That's a pretty good spread right there. Which one did you find yourself using the most? You had a One Max? How did your pants stay up?
that was hiding in my bag.
Yeah, we had a One Max too. We didn't take it out at all. It was always stuck in the bag because we had nothing to compare it against.
Yeah, I found out after 2 days that it was stuck in my bag, and I didn't realize it.
You're welcome.
That's why it was so heavy.
You're welcome for the extra 4 pounds. Which one was your main driver there, Hayato?
So the Moto X was my main phone in terms of actually, using the phone, and I had it connected to my Pebble and all of that. But I for pictures, I didn't even bother handing it to anybody or using it. So that was pretty much exclusively the Galaxy Note 3.
Roger that. And did you use your home carrier, T-Mo?
Actually, I used AT&T the whole time.
Blasphemy.
We've come to the very heart of the matter. I should have mentioned this. Hayato is a T-Mobile USA retail representative. What do you guys, like at Sprint, they called us wireless consultants to make us feel great. What do they call you guys?
We're just sales reps.
Nice. I like that T-Mobile keeps it real. It's like,
yeah. Did you realize once you landed in Vegas that T-Mobile isn't so hot there?
Yeah, when my grandpa tried to pick me up, he called my. I had my T-Mobile phone turned on, and so he called my Google Voice number, and I dropped the call within 3 minutes.
So this segue. To be fair, no carrier was having a great time in Vegas. What's that?
Never does.
I guess that reminded me of something we're about 80 minutes late to mention, but when we were talking about the Moto G Google Play, why does it exist?
Yeah.
The Moto G Google Play does not have all the same bands as the regular Moto G, and it's lacking the 1700 for T-Mobile.
Oh.
FYI, everybody.
So it's actually worse than the
a little.
Wow.
I mean, T-Mobile's getting better at 1900, but...
Yeah, so moral of the story, buy the original Moto G
buy the regular Moto
and convert it over to a Google Play edition, and you're better off.
There you go.
Speaking of, before we get off carrier, this is a question that I've been meaning to ask for a long time, and it relates to CES in this way. Like, first part of this question, Hayato, how did your employer feel about you attending CES? You seem to have the coolest boss in history, but were there any corporate restrictions you faced?
No,
at all? No,
actually, I do pretty much have the coolest boss. He's always really flexible with my schedule, so I let him know 5 or 6 months ago that, hey, I'd like to have a few days in January off for this event, and he just said okay. And actually, he tried he's been trying the past 2 months to see if he could actually find a way to come with me, but that just wasn't really feasible.
Roger. Now that's kind of segues into my larger question about this. What has your experience been like? Hayato, you are a sales rep for T-Mobile USA, but you are also a correspondent or a contributing editor at techforgeeks.com. So how there has to be some corporate policy that either frowns upon this or specifically endorses it. Like, how do you walk that line?
Frowns upon which part?
Being a member of the press while you're also an employee of a company that you conceivably could report on.
That was actually what got me my job in the first place at T-Mobile.
Explain how that happened.
I went into I went into the nearest T-Mobile store around me when I was looking for jobs right before my semester at college ended, and I brought in a resume, and the only thing I had no work experience, so my resume just said that I had a website about technology, and so I handed that to him, and we had like a 10-minute interview, and as soon as that was done, he was just like, "Yeah, you can start next week if you want."
I had no such website about technology when I was hired at Nextel, but I just was in the right place at the right time. I was like, "Hey, this store wasn't here yesterday." The manager's like, "Yep," and I'm like, "Are you guys hiring?" He's like, "Yep." I'm like, "Oh, all right, sweet. I'll start whenever you need me to."
Yeah, I had some really nervous interview with a guy at Best Buy to get my job there. I mean, it was, all I knew about was BlackBerry. I didn't know really anything about carriers or anything else, just BlackBerries. Yeah, they almost didn't hire me just because I'd bounced around so many jobs, but I got it just because, I guess, they needed somebody.
Nervous.
Do I need to start moonlighting as a cell phone salesperson if I'm going to be legit in this industry?
Steven, do you feel like an outcast yet? I'm sorry.
I have not earned my...
You've not earned your stripes in retail.
Yeah, stripes. That's it.
Well, Hayato, tell me, just we've kind of bounced all around CES, right? Tell me, did it change anything about the way you perceive the industry? Did it look about the same as it looked through a camera lens, or are you now the recipient of some added perspective when it comes to trade shows and tech in general?
I think it went pretty much the way I expected it to. I mean, big, busy trade show with all kinds of people running around, and they're just showing off a bunch of new technology, and that's pretty much what I expected. Although the one thing I did notice, having met, pretty much all the people besides you guys that I watch and read, editorials from and all that, I tweeted about the other day that pretty much everybody I met was exactly as nice in person as they seem on video. Just everybody is very friendly and very, open to meeting new people, meeting their fans. And actually, when I ran into Phil Nickinson, I handed my phone to their cameraman to just get a picture with him, and they actually started recording a video about enjoying meeting the fans. And I think I'm not sure if that video is up on their site yet or not, but
I just wanted to add that a lot of CES, most people think it's all about the gadgets and everything, and actually it's more about relationships and networking than just about anything else. And yes, of course, we go there to cover the new devices, but I think if it were just about the few devices that we get every year, we probably wouldn't send such an expensive team. But it's about getting your face out there and meeting the people that are behind these things. Representatives from LG or Motorola, ZTE, trying to establish relationships with companies we don't have relationships with, and meeting people within the industry, because that ultimately creates this kind of friendship between websites. If I hadn't networked as well as I do, I wouldn't be working with Pocketnow right now. I'm confident in saying that because I never would have met Michael and then in turn Brandon and Jaime, and I probably wouldn't be where I am. And it's a lot of it is about that.
It really is.
Yeah, and everyone, and we say this a lot, but everyone sees this industry and thinks, all these competitors, they get in this place and they probably fight and bicker, but it's actually the complete opposite. When we see everyone, we're like, hey, what's up? Just everyone from other sites. And a perfect example of that was Anton, Michael, and myself were at the Sony event. We ran into Austin and Marquez and their friend Amy, We ran into the Phone Arena guys. We ran into a whole bunch of other people. We were all standing in this big group and frankly making fun of the press event that was happening. But we were having a lot of fun.
I needed to get out of there after a while. One of the guys just laughed openly when there was a clap moment that didn't get respect. And I was like, I have to get away. You guys are making me look bad. I have to get away from all of you.
Yeah,
it was kind of like being in like a high school assembly with like your friends who misbehave often. And I'm like, stop it. We should also mention the guys from Android Authority who we met and had a great time talking with for a while at PepCon.
Yeah, they actually, one of them, Darcy, met me last year at CES, and he just caught me completely off guard, and he walked up behind me, and he's like, "You're famous, yeah?" And I'm like, no, no, I'm not. And he's like, "Yeah, you are. You're Taylor." I'm like, "I don't know who you are, but no, I'm not." And just kind of like walked off as awkwardly as I possibly could have. But I met them, I guess, officially for the first time this time at CES, and they're really nice guys. It's really nice to meet.
Join us on a future episode of the Weekly too, by the way.
Yeah, it's really nice to meet all the people behind everything, and I hate I didn't get to meet you, Hayato.
Yeah, Hayato, seriously, it would have been really, really great to meet you in person. But this is that leads into my next question. Do you think you'll make it to CES next year?
Oh yeah, absolutely. If the weather permits next time.
Good. Yeah, I know. I hope that the fly-in is not as rough next time. We've already started cooking up plans because, while Taylor mentioned that meeting people is a big part of it. We couldn't do it as much as we wanted to because half of us were sick. One of us was really sick. The other half were getting sick, and then I didn't have a voice. So we were trying to meet some people, and that was probably, I don't know. Hayato, you may be aware that not everyone on our team is as relaxed as you, particularly me.
Yeah?
Yeah, so Taylor's trying to Taylor's like, we should meet these people, and I was so mad that my voice was gone, and I was so sick, and I was so high-strung that, the suggestion of anything was annoying to me. So I was like, we should meet these people. In my head, I'm like, he's absolutely right, you should. But outwardly, I'm like, Taylor, I can't talk.
Yeah, he was a little whiny and angry.
No, I wasn't whiny. I was angry. I was outraged. Yeah.
But that is by far my favorite part of going to trade shows because I get to meet people that I'm not ever going to see anywhere else. For instance, I met Philip DeFranco again.
We're done name dropping. We're done with this.
I'm name dropping because it's just the thought of running into these people and them, I guess, not being as glorified as they are on the internet.
So that's my question. This is a question. Hayato, this is what I meant to ask before. Without naming names, you don't have to this is not to crap on anybody. This is a legit question that I have. Did you have a moment where you're meeting these people and you kind of said to yourself these guys are they're exactly who I see on the internet. This is not. Did you have a moment of non-starstruckness? I guess is my question.
Yeah, I mean, it's I feel like I said, everybody's pretty much, the way that they seem on the internet in terms of, how friendly they are and things like that. I mean, everybody was, everybody was just kind of doing their own thing. And I didn't really, it was cool seeing, all these people from the internet that I watch all the time. But at the same time, they are still, they're still just people. So
yeah, that kind of. I was talking to a friend of mine who's in radio, and for the majority of her college career learning radio, she kind of idolized a lot of the people she had listened to growing up on local broadcast. And one of her professors actually said to her at one point, your learning experience is going to be diminished if you don't stop idolizing these people, stop treating these people as heroes, because they're just normal people. And that always stuck with me, that story, because as I mentioned in a post recently, there are people in this industry who I really wanted to meet for a very long time, but several times when the opportunity came up, I would forego it. This is before I joined Pocketnow. This is before I was anybody. I was just at some events, and I was kind of too afraid to do it. I was too shy or whatever like that, and it really impaired my socialization. I don't know how to say it any better. I think the moral of the story is you should just say hi to who you want to say hi to. Rather than, I don't know, elevating people to a position where you're afraid to talk to them, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it helps that I've met a lot of people in bands that I listen to. But I mean, yeah, I went to a Between the Buried and Me show a couple of months ago, and we were really excited for the show. But we look over to the side while we're waiting in line to get in, and all the guys from the band are just outside their trailer playing football, and they're just Devin was actually trying to take pictures of them, so she just kind of walked up there and said hey to the guys from the Faceless, who was another band touring with them, and we ended up just she talked to them, we got the photo pass, and everything worked out pretty well, and they're just normal people, just like anybody else.
Just by virtue of asking. Very important.
Yeah.
For all this great community going on in the, mobile tech industry, wouldn't it be cool if there was like a nemesis out there, like one side that everybody hated?
I think there is. I don't think we can.
Yeah, there is.
Actually, we might all have different answers on that. Like I have a site in my head that I really don't like. That.
Well, yeah.
But no, you're right, Stephen. There should be like one like
the Dark Horse,
black robed figure who's.
Oh no,
there should be a
there
Darth
definitely
Maul
is. There definitely is, and I'm not. I won't say, but I mean, even if you see these people in person at an event like CES, it's very much like that. Like I've walked up to them and been like, "Hey, how's it going?" And they just kind of nod and walk away.
Yeah, it's
the total opposite of what you get from about 99% of the people in this industry, and it's just strange to me.
It's weird. But yeah, I don't know. I'm glad, Stephen. I think that would be interesting from an entertainment perspective. I'm sort of glad that's not the way it is.
It's a lot nicer this way, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I'm really glad that we're not like at CES after dark. Like there aren't people hopping fences to set other people's trailers on fire. Like
that's more of an IFA kind of thing.
Yeah, that's definitely a German kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Well, I think we have to kind of move on here. But Hayato, do you have any closing thoughts before we take off on CES? Anything that you wanted to share that you didn't get to talk about?
No, I mean I think I got pretty much everything out that was on my mind.
Good. Well, I really hope, and I know the guys join me in saying this. I hope that next year you're able to stay a little bit longer, and I wonder if you'll be doing any other trade shows. I wonder if you'll be doing MWC or IFA or anything like that.
I'm hoping to next year. This year it's definitely not really an option, but next year I'm hoping to go to as many as I can.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to seeing you at one or more of them, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the live as well. Why don't you tell everybody on the internet who is not familiar with you already where you can be found on Twitter and so on, and where you can be found in your writerly life?
Yes, I mean, on any kind of social networks, I'm just first last name, so it's just Hayato Huseman. I'm pretty much any social network.
Don't make the mistake I did. Don't spell his name wrong. It is Hayato Huseman.
If you knew
correct?
Japanese, you'd know why that first spelling didn't make sense.
And I don't know Japanese, so there we are. There's my thing. And what about in your writerly life?
So our website is techforgeeks.com, so tech4geeks.com, and our YouTube channel, which is where we spend we put a little more work into, is youtube.com/tech4all and the number 1.
Hayato, thank you again for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon on the Pocketnow Live.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. And I'm sad I had to miss you guys at CES, but like you said, we'll definitely have to try and run into each other at another show next year.
We will make that happen, I promise.
For sure.
Well, it was awesome to have Hayato on the air. Taylor Martin had to drop off. He had some matters to attend to. Stephen Shank and I, because we can't skip it again, we're going to run through just a couple pieces of your listener mail, listeners, because you deserve to be heard on the air. This is one of our favorite segments to do. So let's jump into listener mail. Stephen, do you have a particular preference for what to start off with, or shall I kick us off?
Yep. I just pulled one open here. I'm
Awesome.
about 3/4 of the way through reading it, but it seems like a decent one.
Well, then that sounds like a good place to begin. Hit us.
Okay, this is from Adil F., who writes, "Hi guys, regular listener and first-time writer here. First of all, you rock, specifically Michael and Taylor.
Hey.
It seems to have forgotten someone's name in there, but we'll keep going and just keep up the awesome work. Adil has a question regarding upgrading his phone. It says it goes without saying that devices like the Moto G, while good, are not quite up to the flagship level, but what about previous flagships? I'm currently using an HTC One X, which I really do like. However, it's starting to get a little long in the tooth. And yeah, with that news we saw of the updates officially done for the One X and the X Plus, that's definitely true. Battery life, he says, in particular, is starting to annoy me.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, instead of merely considering flagships, perhaps I should consider the Moto G. What do you think? How's the battery life on the thing? That's a good question.
It's a really good question. Then there's another part to it.
Yeah, well, should we hit these one at a time or continue?
No, see, the thing is, I just want to say, like, this is the reason I want to have a different show. This is the reason I want to have an additional podcast called What Phone Should I Get? Because these are the kind of questions we get all the time. Should I get this or this? Should I get A or B?
Yeah.
And honestly, we could talk about it for 45 minutes because there are so many.
And sometimes we do.
And sometimes we do. It's true. So why don't you go ahead and read the other part of the question?
His other choice is Nexus 5, says, which I know is a really good phone, but costs twice as much as the Moto G and is a 5-inch phone. And he feels the One X is already stretching the limits of comfortable one-hand use. And so how big is the Nexus 5 exactly?
Yeah. This is a really, really good question. And then we can refer to him as Christopher Mikowski from Dubai. McDowski, not Mikowski, sorry.
Oh, yes, that's... I don't know where you get a deal from. Okay, Christopher Mikowski from Dubai.
Are we, like, unwittingly falling victim to a movie joke or something like that? No, we're not, I guess.
No, no.
Okay. So, this is a good question. I think, Stephen, you have an Nexus 5?
I do, and I think the battery life is fantastic. And if that's your concern, by all means, get the Nexus 5. As far as the size goes,
what about the size?
I got to admit, it's a little big for me. It's not... It is so big that I sometimes find myself uncomfortable using it, especially when taking photos. I'm always stretching to weird angles to hold it correctly and hit the shutter, but that's more the UI than anything. If it was 4.7 inches, I think I'd be a little happier, but I'm not upset about it. And yeah, it does cost twice as much as the Moto G, but we're talking difference between $1 and $2, not $1 and $20 here, or not 10 and 50. It's still on the cheaper end of the spectrum. If money's a really big deal for you, then the Moto G is still a very great phone. Have you had any experience with the Moto G, Michael? I don't know if you've... Yeah,
I did the review rebuttal on it, or something. I don't know what I did on it.
How have you found the battery?
Honestly, the battery's been fine for me. I really like the Moto G, but I think the battery life is not the thing that we need to remember when talking about these phones, because we pay so much wonderful lip service to the Moto X and Moto G.
Yeah.
Or we give them so much credit, rather. It was poor phrasing. That we sometimes do forget that, honestly, the cameras on these devices are not very good. So if you care at all about photography, neither of these is a good option for you. The Nexus 5 is no award winner in this category either, but it's better. It's better than the Moto line. So if that's a consideration, then there's your answer. Same time, if it's not, I'd get the Moto G out of these.
Really?
This guy's already asking us. Christopher is already asking us about hand size. Yes, the One X was a pretty large device. The Nexus 5, I think, will be more manageable than that was.
The bezel's pretty thin on the 5.
It is, but it's also a very light device. If you don't choose to carry it with a case, it's a very slippery device, I find. Not like tacky, glossy.
Wait, do you have the white or the black?
I had the white.
Because the finish is different.
Oh, you're right. And the black one, I guess, is softer. No, you're right. I'm sorry.
I haven't had any slippery issue.
Okay. I think this is really one of those choices that comes down to, you're right, there's not a huge cost difference, unless there is in your region.
Yeah, if this is a factor, then maybe the Nexus 5 isn't even worth considering.
Absolutely. But that being put aside, this is going to come down to your personal choice. You need to hold both devices in your hand. Mm-hmm. And if it were me, I'd pick the Moto G. I know it sounds crazy to say, but I'm a big proponent of a good feel in hand and really great voice quality and things of that nature. I just happen to like the Moto G's hardware better.
How thick is that Moto G? Is that about a centimeter?
It's thicker than the Moto X, and it's thicker than the Nexus 5, I think. Yeah, but it's a really tough call. I mean, did we do we didn't do a comparison of the two. We did a Moto X versus...
No, that wasn't an obvious comparison to do.
Yeah. But honestly, my advice would be hold them both. My second piece of advice would be definitely read both of our reviews, because we have reviewed the G and the Nexus 5, and then go from there. I can't make a decision except for myself, and I would say Moto G. Would you say Nexus 5?
I mean, not having experienced the Moto G, I've got to say Nexus 5, especially with that battery as good as it's been. I mean, yesterday I got off work at 8 p.m. The battery was at 94%, not having been plugged in all day long. That's stellar.
Yeah, I was kind of trying to remember what my thing was. Taylor's subtitle of his Moto G review is "Raising the Bar for Affordable Android Handsets." And of course,
and speaking of affordable, I didn't get to mention this on the news because it didn't seem worthwhile, but Moto G at, I think, Metro PCS, $30.
Wow.
No annual contract.
That's incredible. I want to say, just to touch on the battery life as my final comment on this, on my weekend experiment with the Moto G, I found that it managed to keep pace with one of the heaviest mobile users out there. That's me. At the tail end of nearly 10 hours of use, with 2 hours of screen on time, it still had almost 50% of its battery power left. So
nothing to shake a stick at.
No, not at all. That's substantial. That's on track for a 4-hour screen on time. The math doesn't really match up there, but maybe in a rosy world. So there's your half answer, well considered, but maybe wanderingly answered. Hope it was some kind of help. Christopher McDowski from Dubai. Thank you for writing in. Why don't we move on to an email from Mark Coote. This is a gentleman rocking a Blue Life Play. That's awesome. Hey, Pocketnow team. I asked last year for your opinion on unknown OEMs. My question now is more specific. What's your opinion on the company Blue and their recent offerings in consumer electronics? What?
I got some opinions on Blue.
Oh, this is good. I don't think that these handsets are on your radar, and if so, what are your opinions on this Miami-based OEM that's stirring the waters of budget and mid-range handsets? If not, please state why you believe this manufacturer is not grabbing your attention. One love from Jamaica, Mark. Stephen, hit us.
We are using that word manufacturer in the loosest of terms here. Yes. As far as I'm aware, Blue does not actually make any of that hardware. This is stuff coming out of Southeast Asia. They're putting their software on it. Maybe they're touching up the very, very outside facade bit, but they're not designing these phones. And so just right off the bat, I don't have a ton of respect for the company. I mean, a lot of companies can rebrand other people's hardware. And they haven't, maybe if they were doing something really impressive with that hardware, if they put software on top of it that made it so much more, if software that just gave it something worth paying attention to, if they had a skin like TouchWiz or something, but they don't. They're not doing anything unique with these phones that makes us, worth paying that much attention to them.
I agree. I was fortunate enough to run into, thanks to that same friend I talked about earlier in the show, I spent a little bit of time with a Blue device.
Like Pure Pro Studio?
I don't know. What's a Blue Life?
Because these come from different manufacturers, they all look completely different. It's really weird.
Yeah, right. It's like it's one of these houses that we've seen, particularly at CES, where it's like, wow, you guys have a substantial booth with a lot of handsets in here. Why haven't I heard of you? Oh, because half of these are rebadged models from somewhere else, and the other half are like concept models that are never going to see the light of day. So, Stephen, I echo your feelings. I don't want to throw this company out completely.
No, it's trying
CEO
to do
is well
something
connected, and like it seems positioned to experience some degree of success. But honestly, from what I saw from this device that I was holding, this aluminum thing, I was like, hey, it didn't ring my bell. I was like, no, whatever. I don't need to see this again. Thank you for this bit of novelty that I get to experience, but I don't ever want to carry this handset, and I don't know of anyone I would recommend it to. That said, if you're in a market where cost is really important to you, not if you're in a market, if you're in a market where phones are available to you at various different price points, and you personally are very worried about cost, then maybe these are something to look at. Absolutely.
Yeah, but that's been my problem, at least with the U.S. market where these guys are based. There are so many better, cheap options available.
There are, I think, but they're based in the U.S., but they are...
But they don't sell in the U.S.
Yeah, they're making inroads in Latin America.
South America, yeah.
Yeah.
Brazil.
Which is, which is awesome, but we don't cover that market terribly broadly, I don't think. So I guess the short answer is I certainly don't mind that this company exists. I think any firm that puts out hardware that's not complete crap is a good thing for the industry. I really like diversity in product selection, but I don't see us covering them any more closely than we have before, unless something really cool changes. And if something changes that changes that, I'll be the first person there in line to cover it. I mean, that's awesome.
I mean, it wouldn't be exactly the same as what HTC did, but HTC turned itself around from the sort of company making the sort of devices that Blue is doing their business with to a company that put phones out with its own name. Maybe Blue could put a spin on that and come out with some original hardware that's really impressive and affordable and all the things we look for. Who knows?
There you go. Thank you for writing in, Mark. We hope that answer was sufficient for you. Stephen, what's our next piece of mail? Our second to last, it will be.
Well, yes, Michael, I do have another one.
Ooh, hit us.
We have a mail here from Safi Uzman.
Yes, Uzman. We've heard from Safi before.
Hello to everyone. Question. Windows OS brings some breath of fresh air with live tiles, yet its minimalistic approach. Google doesn't want to support Windows OS, citing low market share, and I assume we're talking about Windows Phone here.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, then Google supported iOS from day one with their YouTube app, etc. Then why not Windows OS? After all, Google's main revenue comes from services and not from the OS itself. Does Google feel threatened by Windows in any way with the Windows fluid yet not so expensive products? Your thoughts, please. Well, we have some thoughts on this matter.
Yeah, I feel like we talk about this way too often.
We have talked about it. Every time we hear about an app being updated on iOS but not on Windows Phone,
yeah, it's not, I think the urge with a question... trying to answer a question like this is to simplify the matter and to render it really much less complex than it actually is. Yeah. Does Google feel threatened by Windows Phone and its current incarnation? No. Does the company want to give Windows Phone any ability to become a threat in the future, though?
There's the rub. Yeah.
Right. Windows Phone, for all of its challenges in getting penetration, is not insignificant in a lot of ways. We just had Adam Dowd just penned a piece called Windows Phone's Success in 24 Markets Means Something. And I completely agree. So I think Google has one eye on the future. They don't really want to be dealing with another Android competitor at any point. But also look what Microsoft is doing. Microsoft is so aggressively berating Google in the public eye with these childish, stupid Scroogled ads, which we've just bemoaned over and over again. Would you help him out if you were Google? I wouldn't, But even that is not going deep enough because the beef extends to before that. And a lot of sites that go further in depth into this stuff have covered this war.
Torrid relationships.
Absolutely, right. And that's not really something we cover, but it's fascinating to read about. But I think it behooves anyone who wants to understand this relationship to do that, to actually investigate it. It's not a question of Google feeling
threats.
Yeah. It's a much more complex dynamic.
It's being pragmatic. It's looking at future business interests. It's not a matter of winning. It's what's going to be profitable 5 years from now if we're doing this today.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So I think that this could consume many podcasts this length, going into this in depth. But Safi, thank you for writing in. And I too share your frustration. Believe me, we all want a solid suite of Google services on non-Android devices.
Everyone would benefit.
Windows phones, yeah. But, we're going to have to wait and see if that ever happens. And maybe it'll take so long that 3 or 4 years down the road it still won't have happened. But maybe by then Google's services will no longer be the go-to, choice for a lot of people. Maybe
you're going to bet on that, Michael?
Not at all. but this industry, for everything else it does, the number one impressive thing this industry does to me is surprise me all the time. And I'm not willing to rule it out. I'm not saying I'm going to have an Outlook.com email address anytime soon, but you never know what could happen. So,
case in point, the Google Play Edition Moto G. Never saw that one coming. Exactly. Why couldn't we see a full-featured YouTube Windows Phone app?
Right, exactly. Safi, thank you for writing in. I think we're going to close out the show because we're at time, and also because my computer is about to give up the ghost in terms of power. But that's good. This final one is a carrier question. This is from John. No other information given. Hey guys, hope you're all doing well. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on T-Mobile's new strategy with the new Uncarrier 4. Do you think that we'll see the same thing from AT&T soon, and Verizon, if they lose enough customers where they start paying ETFs for switchers? I think they're really onto something here. If only everyone would bring back unlimited data. Anyway, guys, thanks. Take it easy. Love the show and the site. John, thanks for writing in. Cool question. I have some thoughts on T-Mobile's Uncarrier strategy here. I think
it's weird. There's this new bit with the not frenemies. What are they calling it?
That's Sprint.
Oh, that's Sprint. I'm getting my wires crossed here.
Family plans.
So Sprint is just the ETF business then?
Yeah, well, Sprint, who knows exactly what.
Or T-Mobile was just the ETF.
Yeah,
there's too many carriers.
T-Mobile, I really like what T-Mobile's doing in that they're doing the only thing that they can afford to do. T-Mobile USA is generating a lot of press for itself in the wake of its failed bid to be bought by AT&T, and in the face of the fact that it still has, there's no question about it, I think, in my experience, it still has the least impressive network of all the four major U.S. nationals.
It's been getting better.
It has, and but they've all
so
been
everyone else's
better.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So they're all improving at a maybe not a uniform rate. I don't have the statistics to back that up, but in my experience.
I think the big news out of these recent T-Mobile announcements isn't the ETF business, but T-Mobile buying like $3 billion worth of spectrum from Verizon.
When did that happen? Actually,
in the past week or so.
T-Mobile buys spectrum.
Or it was like a $2.3 billion cash, and then T-Mobile traded a little. But T-Mobile's getting a lot more spectrum out of this, and that could go a long way towards helping with the biggest problem, which is the quality of its network.
Absolutely, yeah. No, that's fascinating, and
it'll be 5 years before we see it actually make an impact. But
right, and we see these kind of rumors all the time in terms of acquisition stuff. Then there's the Sprint. Is Sprint going to buy them and stuff like that? But you know what the thing is? We're not talking about that. Yes, we're reporting on it, but what are the things that people are writing in about? What are the things that we're talking about on the podcast? We're talking about John Legere and his crazy CEO antics.
Getting kicked out of the
AT&T parties and like dropping coal in their stockings on like Vine videos and stuff. And we're talking about these uncarrier moves. Like, the company is doing an amazing job of managing the conversation, of positioning themselves the way they want to be seen. And they want to be seen as the rebel that's shaking things up. They want to be seen as the company that's being cool when everybody else is being stodgy, lame, and old school.
Yeah, and it seems to be working. AT&T is copying them. That's how you know you're doing something right. And I think subscribers, T-Mobile is finally not bleeding them anymore and is taking new ones on. That's great for them.
Absolutely. And they're nimble about it too. When this net neutrality thing came about, they instantly started positioning themselves as the only carrier that is going to, protect or advance the cause of net neutrality going forward.
That's funny. To hear it from T-Mobile, because I was under the impression that, because I'm on a T-Mobile prepaid plan, and I keep hearing, I don't know if it's ever been proven, that T-Mobile prioritizes its postpaid traffic over prepaid traffic.
Oh.
So it'd be very interesting how they feel that might fit into their net neutrality position.
Right. Well, and I want to say, that's a good point, Stephen, because we're not talking about the ultimate results here. We're not talking about the actual truth. We're talking about marketing. We're talking about messaging. Whether it's a bald-faced lie or not, T-Mobile's getting the message out there that, hey, we're your friend. At all costs, that's what they're saying. We're cool, we're hip, we're not old and stodgy, and we are the people you want to be with. And they're doing a better job of that than any carrier out there right now, and that's awesome. Now, whether you're actually happy once you get on that network, I don't know. It depends on your market, depends where you live and work. If you're in an area that's very well covered by T-Mobile, hey, I imagine that life is awesome. So.
I feel like there's some Boost Mobile exec being very forlorn, but we were supposed to be the cool network.
I know. Well, you know, the question I have...
Where are you at?
Where are you at? Yeah. So, you know, John, this is a cool email. You make a good point. I think their strategy is worthwhile. I think they're having some awesome success in being very visible. And until that company is acquired, then this story is going to keep getting more and more interesting. So they're already winning in that regard, and maybe the time will come soon where I will have to dip my toe back into the T-Mobile water and see just how well it does in the real world where I live and work. Until
is
then,
that where you live and work?
That's it. You know, Greater Boston. We'll see. Anyway, thank you everyone for all the listener mail. We do have to wrap it up because this is going to be a heck of a show to edit, and I have to get to that before I start doing this after the buzz that I'm not going to be able to film because the sun is now down. God, what a difficult life it is in the wintertime with the sun setting at 3.
Low winter sun.
Yeah.
Don't watch it.
Stephen, thanks for sticking with me all the way to the end here rather than ducking out early like some people I could mention.
I am blessed with fortitude. What can I say?
I appreciate it. Oh, and thanks for sticking with us despite the rescheduling caused by my Grand Theft Auto, The Newsroom, and NyQuil-induced bender.
That's a party I want to go to.
You know, it was a great one. That's going to do it, everyone. Thanks for listening to this latest episode of the Pocketnow Weekly. Appreciate you joining us, and be sure to find us on Twitter. Casper Tech is where Taylor can be found, CESPERTEK. Stephen is at Stephen Schenk, STEPHEN Our guest, Hayato Huseman, HAYATOHUSEMAN, and he's also at tech4geeks.com. You can follow Pocketnow officially at Pocketnow on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Google+. You can get on our forums, forums.pocketnow.com. And if you enjoyed the show, please leave us a review on iTunes or Xbox Music or Stitcher. We can't get enough good reviews. Or if you just want to say hi or you want to send us a piece of email, do it. podcast@pocketnow.com. Thank you so much for listening once again, and we will see you next week. If there's ever a decision point, we want to treat this like a logic gate, okay? So if there's ever a decision point where you're at where you're like, should I speak or should I not? Always speak. That's
always.
That's the strategy.
That's what I do.
It's a straight down flow chart.
People don't hate you for it. People hate me now for being mean to you. You've successfully mutinied, Taylor.
I've like passively aggressively turned into the victim, and I love it.
It's a really, really nice reversal you've managed, you troll.